empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to Scoop World Order. Huge Friday night show. Thank you for joining us. Thank you guys they're already waiting in here, ready to rock. Great news. My fellow captain from the 2007 team and one of the greatest Ohio State Buckeyes of all time, James Laurinaitis, is returning to campus. If you are a part of BuckeyeScoop.com, you've probably known this since Wednesday when we basically said that was going to happen, and he's been on the front page of our site for 3 days. So not a big secret, but a huge deal. Can't think of someone I'd be more excited about us hiring outside of maybe a Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, or some transformational guy like that. It's just like James, I think, is a guy that'll be an absolute superstar in the coaching profession. He was a great color commentator when he did that with Big Ten and with Fox. And when he wanted to get into coaching, I said, dude, dive into it because we need a dynamic defensive recruiter. I thought it was a major mistake that we didn't hire him last year, but Ryan Day rectified his mistake and brought James home, and I'm super excited to see what he can do with Tommy Eichenberg and Steele Chambers, and not to mention CJ Hicks and some of these young linebackers. Super excited about that. Thank you guys for joining us. As always, we are a viewer-driven show, like a player-driven program Urban Meyer used to talk about. We are a viewer-driven show, and we can't do this without you guys. So thank you guys so much. If you guys could leave us a like and subscribe to the channel, that is so huge for us. We appreciate you guys so much. We love interacting with you. Your questions are fantastic. Oftentimes, as good of a part of the show as what Nevadabuck or Bill Greene and I can provide. So really appreciate you guys joining in with us. As always, it's just so fun to interact with you guys, and thank you guys for spending your Friday night with us because you guys have a lot of entertainment options to deal with. And if you're like me, I couldn't wait to get a workout in and get this show going. So I'm going to bring in my good friend Nevadabuck. He is back in the building. Nevada, how are you tonight?
Man, I'm not sure if the technical problems are on my side or on the Ohio State heavyweight wrestlers side right now because he's losing 12-3 to the Michigan guy. But despite that, we're still going to win the dual meet against Michigan. Very happy about that. But now my technical snafus have been fixed.
Yeah, it's interesting because I completely forgot that was going on. I went and got a quick workout in before the show started. But your initial reaction, you broke the news that James Laurinaitis was coming back on Wednesday. You had a pretty open nugget about the state of the support staff, the fact that Coy McFarland had been the linebackers coach under Jim Knowles, and he went with Kevin Wilson, too tall said to be, and on the field, a promotion to an on the field role as a linebacker coach. It seemed like the ocean was parting for James Laurinaitis to come back. You said it was going to happen. It did happen. What are your thoughts on the return of James Laurinaitis to the Woody Hayes Athletic Center in a coaching role?
Well, one, I think it's long overdue. I know this is something that James has wanted to do for quite some time. We've talked about some of the challenges he had when he was, reaching out, trying to get Ohio State interested. They weren't at the time. There was some concern that he might overshadow Al Washington in the linebacker room. Now they've got an adult in there, Jim Knowles. The fences have been mended. The offer's been made, and James Laurinaitis is returning. I couldn't be more excited. I felt the same way that I did about James that I did about Brian Hartline, and I think he'll have a similar impact on the defense, on the linebackers, and on linebacker recruiting once he can get into that role as Hartline did on the offensive side. I think he's that impactful. I think he's that smart. He's that credentialed. He's got that type of love and connection to the school. So I think this is just a massive, massive get for Ohio State, and just a continued step to me that shows that Ryan Day gets it, that he understands what it's like to be here at Ohio State, how important the culture is, how important it is to have guys that have been there, that really are Buckeyes. And nobody's more Buckeye than James Laurinaitis. And, 3-time All-American. The number of, when you call roll for 3-time All-Americans at Ohio State, it doesn't take you long to call roll because it's not many guys. So James is definitely in the rare air, and very, very excited to see him join the staff, and glad that we were able to break that up Buckeye Scoop, and really, really excited about it.
I think of all the guys I played with, the two guys that really, excuse me, I'm just tweeting this link so some more people know that we are live right now. Him and AJ Hawk are just in a different stratosphere in terms of the level of respect, combined with the level of play, the way that they worked, the way they went about their business. I was around for 5 years, and then I was also a coach for 3 years. So I've been around the program for 8 years, and then I've covered it, in a media role since then. And those are the guys that really are different, just from how they worked, how they led. I mean, John Simon's probably in that category as well. I think from a pure coaching standpoint, but not quite an ability standpoint. I mean, Luke Fickell was a guy that was really well respected. Wasn't anywhere near the player that AJ or James were, just in terms of, I mean, those are multiple time All-Americans, different breed there. But I'm just excited because when James said he wanted to dive into it, we had a little talk, and I was like, look, it's a long season, it's a hard road. You're not always gonna be eating filet mignon at Ohio State. A lot of coaches got to bounce around a little bit and take some losses, and it's tough. I mean, because if you're at a bad school and you lose, it sucks. If you're at Ohio State and you lose a game, it sucks. So it's just part of the gig, and he knows that. I mean, he is a player here. He dealt with expectations and kind of rebuilding after, we were captains after that Florida game where we got destroyed. And it was hard because the morale of the team and city were at an all-time low. And we really had to battle back after we lost a Heisman winner, 2 first-round receivers, a third-round running back, a lot of good defensive players, Quinn Pickhock. So there was a big rebuild into 2007. And, we were a severely young team, and James had to be a junior captain. And this is at a time when junior captains were unheard of at Ohio State. Now it's like we hand out captaincies like we hand out, sticks of gum anymore. But it was back when it was actually a real thing to be a captain. And James is a guy that was a junior captain. He was a fantastic junior captain, and rightfully so. And then he was a captain his senior year. And then he had a fantastic NFL career for 8 years. And now, I'm just excited to see, how he can learn under Jim Knowles. I did find the notion that, when we got the word inside the Woody Hayes that one of the reasons that he wasn't hired is because that he might overshadow Al Washington. I'm like, well, yeah, Al Washington was a defensive lineman as a player, defensive line coach. He's been a running backs coach. Never was really a linebackers coach. The only time he was a linebackers coach was in 2018 at Michigan. And if I remember correctly, I watched that linebacker group that had Devin Bush, who was a top 10 pick, and they gave up 62 points to us in the horseshoe. And I thought that was the worst defense I'd ever seen in my life. And then Ryan Day went out and hired him, which was stunning. And again, I never liked that hire. I think that there's some guys that can transition from where they played to being a really good young coach at a different position, but it's rare. Like Luke Fickell did that, nose guard that turned into a linebackers coach, but Luke's a different beast, I thought James should have been the linebacker coach last year because he is a guy that it played it as well as anybody. He's as smart as anybody. His work habits are exceptional. So that's a great translation into coaching. I just thought it was a slam dunk. It was sad that he had to spend a year at Notre Dame and waste a year, but hopefully he'll come back and buy his house again and be back to where he was 2 years ago. So I'm just happy for him and his family. And I think it'll inject some fervor into the recruiting side of of Ohio State. Nevada, how long do you think James stays a graduate assistant? Do you think it's a 1-year deal? I would think it's a 1-year deal, and then he gets promoted to the top 10 so that he can go out on the road and recruit. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, there's some NCAA, some pending legislation about, kind of expanding the staff and responsibilities for GAs and other support staff that goes beyond the 10. But while that's on the shelf, I think this has got to be, a 1-year, not experiment, but a 1-year kind of trial by fire, and then step into a more advanced role, after one season with the Buckeyes. And, depending on how things break, I mean, that could get accelerated if things break aggressively on the defensive side this year. So, you never know, but I'd say it's probably, if I was betting, I'd probably put the over under at about 12 months and probably bet the under on that.
Yeah, I think you have to get him on the road. I mean, I think if there's a way that as he gets up to speed in becoming a full-time coach, which I don't think will take him long. I mean, Brian Hartline was a quality control coach for 17 in 18 with Haskins, he kind of became the full-time receivers coach when, he was the interim for the Haskins year when the stuff happened with Zach, and then he got promoted. So, I mean, he literally was a GA for 1 year and then became a full-time coach. So, I mean, I think James is on that same track, and I think that his huge value add, or he'll be an A++ is as a recruiter, and I think that we need some young blood on that defensive side of the ball. I don't think that we need a special teams coordinator. So, if you asked me, I'd make James a special teams coordinator tomorrow, and then you'd let him go on the road and go pull some linebackers, because we missed on Troy Bowles, we missed on Tackett Curtis. You send James down there, and it could be a different story, especially with a kid like Tackett, who liked Ohio State, but we lost that battle to SC, and that was a kid that I think we were at a point favored to get. So I think you got to unleash James on the road, the way that Brian Hartline kind of comes South Florida, Texas, and he gets these fantastic receivers. I think you need James to go down and get some of these superstar defensive players, especially in the back seven. I think he really he'll kill it with the linebackers, obviously, but safeties, corners, even D line. I mean, James is a really relatable kid, really smart kid, and I think that'll be something that'll be a big bump for him as he gets into more of a full-time role. I would say that would happen within a year. Guys, we're going to take your questions. There was a lot of stuff going on today. It was kind of a crazy day. We had a huge offer. A kid named Carter Lowe out of Toledo Whitmer, 6'6", 295, 2025 offensive tackle. So he's going to be a junior in high school next year. We have his film to break down. There's a lot of movement on the offensive line front. We're getting really aggressive in state. A lot of these guys are right on the fringe of getting offered. So they know that they've had completely unusual attrition, really unheard of attrition in the offensive line group, with a couple kids portaling out. With we had 4 kids in the last 2 years go pro early, so that kind of completely resets your room when you guys have like DeJuan Paris, Luke Whippler. Luke Whippler left after his redshirt sophomore year, which is something you very, very rarely see from an offensive lineman. DeJuan left as a redshirt junior. Paris is a third-year junior. Nick Petitfrere is a fourth-year junior. So it makes you speed up your cycle to get some of these offensive linemen, especially when you lose Ryan Jacoby, who would likely be our starter at right tackle this year. He's going to start at Pitt this year instead. Max Ray moved on to Colorado. A lot of attrition. So it's a big year for Justin Friday to get some young, tall guys in that room. And I'm excited. I think we got some young guys that can play. I think that these freshmen coming in, Austin Seyerveld, Luke Montgomery, Josh Padilla, I think those guys are all players. So, it's on Justin and Mickey Marotti to develop them into everything they can be. And I think that if any of those guys that want to figure out how to pass block early, probably play early this year. Nevada, talking O-line, this Carter Lowe, he lives in Ohio. He's from Toledo. That's a great question. That is kind of right on the fringe. Nevada, what are your thoughts on the offensive line recruiting? We're getting aggressive inside the state of Ohio. I love that. But what are your thoughts on it?
Well, I love the offer today. I mean, that kid, if anybody's seen that kid in person, I mean, he's a monster. I mean, he looks like a grown man already. And like you said, he's a 2025 recruit. And, sometimes they fudge on the numbers. They'll say 6'6". He's really 6'4". No, he's every bit of 6'6", 290, carries the weight really well, moves really well. Just a very impressive, line prospect. I mean, we've talked about the state of Ohio being down a little bit the last few years, and that's a fact. But he's a blue chip for sure, and merited the early offer, got the early offer, and I think he's the Buckeyes are a heavy favorite to land him. So couldn't be more excited about that one. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. Bama's coming up. William Satterwhite is a kid that we might have to get going on. He is a kid from Akron-Hoban. I watched his film. We're going to watch his film after Carter Lowe's. Alabama went on him, and it's a committable offer. Kid right here from Akron. Again, we've had a little bit of difficulty at Hoban since we pulled the rug out from under Danny Clark. His brother Caden Clark, who was a tight end, who was a couple years younger, ended up going to Alabama. Never really even visited Ohio State after what we did to Danny, and you can't really blame the kid. So it'll be interesting to see how this works with William Satterwhite, because I think he's a really good player too. I watched his film and I was like, man, Ohio linemen are, believe it or not, Nevada, Ohio linemen are pretty good.
Yeah, I thought Burt Carton, one of the best tight ends ever to come out of
Oh God.
the Canton Akron area, and really, it's exciting. But I mean, again, all kidding aside, who better to ask about linemen and Ohio linemen than you? Like, you know about it, you played it, you coached it, you've done it at every level, and so I guess what are you thinking about the offers, and what do you think about this latest offer?
Oh, I like Carter Lowe a lot. He's a big kid. His video of him again. Of all the weird things you can have a lineman do, I love watching guys like I'd throw him a basketball and say, "Go do the best dunk you can do." And he's a smooth kid. He can get up there. Nice easy dunker. Which again, that doesn't mean you can pass block, but it means you have some level of athleticism. I think he's really got a lot of potential. He's still really young, raw. He's gonna get much stronger. But I mean, yeah, and again, it's hard because he's got like literally when you watch these films, and I joke about this, but I'm actually kind of serious sometimes. It's like this kid is like this is like Mark Pantone coming off the edge. So punch just kind of like dies, falls down. So you don't get a lot out of watching that. This is more just watching the movement skills and verifying the size. I mean, he's absolutely enormous. He's a left tackle, all the way, left right tackle. And this is him as a sophomore. Playing for Toledo Whitmore, it's a pretty good outfit there. I mean, they're a team that's usually they go deep in the playoffs. It's a good program. This isn't some West Virginia ball or some bad football. This is really good football. So, when you see a kid who's a sophomore playing left tackle and he's enormous, and he's probably still growing, then you got to go on him, and when he's a big athlete, basketball player, what's not to like? So I think that this is a kid, seems like a real nice kid. Was communicating with him a little bit today. Really a nice kid. I think that he's got a lot of upside. And again, these are the kind of kids that you're lucky when you have kids like this in the state of Ohio. A kid who's a 6'6" type kid could end up being 6'8" if he keeps growing. And this is sophomore film. A lot of times when you're watching offensive linemen that are sophomores at bigger programs, they're playing JV or they're playing at the end of games or whatever. But this is early game varsity, and he's starting and he's playing and really he moves well. You can tell he's been coached up. Like this is a play that Kevin Wilson and Justin Fry love running. They run it's a little tackle trap where you just down block, kick, and this is an athletic tackle to do this this little we used to call this topper bash, but it's a little counter play, and he climbs up to the second level. Like that's a really athletic play for a tackle. I hated doing it because I hated pulling when I played tackle, so we didn't really do it a lot. But Justin Fry loves that play. That was one of Urban's favorite plays. He used to run a read option off of it. But I don't know. I really like him. I like the kid from Hoban. I like the twins from St. Ed's. And again, it's not like I'm some guy that's on. I feel like I'm on like Supermarket Express sometimes. Where it's like I'm just trying to say, "Ooh, I like everything. I want to grab everything." But like, there's some legitimate, really good offensive linemen in the state of Ohio this year, and these guys are good enough to, in my opinion, to beat Georgia and beat Alabama. I mean, these guys are, you coach them up, you make them tough. I mean, people always are worried about ghosts and the offensive line and stuff. And it's like I told them, I'm like, look, the most worried a fan base has ever been in the history of Ohio State football about an offensive line was in 2014. We started Jacoby, we started Daryl Baldwin, Billy Price, Pat Elflein, and Taylor. And Taylor Decker obviously is a first round pick, but the rest of those guys, I mean, Elflein had started like one game. Billy had no starts. Jacoby had no starts. And Daryl had no starts. And, when those guys are coming out of high school, Bama didn't recruit Jacoby Bourne. And I love Jacoby Bourne. Jacoby Bourne is maybe the smartest player I've ever been around at Ohio State. He was an absolute genius on the field. Tough as nails. Great kid. But, Bama and Georgia didn't want Billy or didn't want him. And, and then Daryl was a kid that was a reclamation project, defensive tackle. Really stiff kid. Daryl is the nicest kid and the quietest kid, maybe in the history of Ohio State football. He never talked ever, and he turned into a really good player. He was a kid that bounced around the NFL a little bit, had a little bit of time up there, and we beat Alabama and we won the national title. So, like when everyone's worried about Zen and Josh Fryer and all these guys, I'm like, look, I mean, this is when Justin Fry can really shine because it's easy to coach Paris. It's easy to coach DeJuan, the guys that are first round picks and high level guys. Like let's see what you can do with some guys that aren't number one overall tackles in the nation. Some guys that, they're still good enough. And again, with the skill we have, it's not like you need some sort of miracle to be good on offense when you have Marvin, Emeka, Cade Stover, Trey Henderson. Again, they could play me at quarterback. We'd probably still win the Big Ten. So, but what are your thoughts on that, Nevada? I feel like we talk about it every day, but, as we're offering these O-line guys and we get to watch a little bit of O-line film, like, I feel better and better every day.
Yeah, no, it's just nice to see some guys developing in the state of Ohio, like you said. The state of Ohio, for Ohio State to be good, you need some of the layups. You're going to win your share battles on the national front, but recruiting basically is a local business, and right now for linemen, business is pretty good in the state of Ohio, and that bodes well for Ohio State, but both now and in the future. So very encouraging for sure.
Yeah, I love it. Guys, start dumping those questions in. I see you guys have a ton of them already in. We're gonna watch my boy Satterwhite. He actually just followed us on Twitter. God bless him. What a great person. If you guys don't follow us on Twitter at BuckeyeScoop.com, but he's a kid that I actually really like. I hadn't watched his film till today. I found out today his offer was committable. So if he wants to commit to Alabama today, he could be a member of the Crimson Tide. So I think with that offer in hand, it kind of forces Ohio State to speed the clock up a little bit instead of kind of waiting around for these kids to go to camp. Because if Alabama offers you, you really got to figure out if you really want to take that, because that's as good as it gets generally. I mean, if you get Bama, Georgia, it's time for Ohio State to either say that they want you or, go to Bama. And I mean, and any kid that goes to Bama at this point, I don't feel bad because it's such a great program and they've got such a great culture that I never fault a kid that picks Alabama over anywhere. So I'm going to put him on real quick, and then we'll start taking some questions. Appreciate you guys being here on Friday. Again, we love doing this stuff and kind of checking this out. So let's get some oh, I'm tired of it. Sorry, you bring back the vest. I know, I love Tress, man. It's my boy. So he plays right tackle, which is a little different because generally these guys that are their best guys are playing left. But he's a big athletic kid. He finishes. This is him right here, obviously. They do a great job with their film at Hope, and they've got this drone is like flying in the middle of the field. It must be because look where the shot's from. It's from like the 50-yard line. So that's when you've got money, when you get the drone flying up in the air. But really good film. I love his base. I mean, the kid, he loves to finish guys. I mean, he just pile drives guys. And some of these teams that they play early in the season are like, it's like Antarctica State and some of these small schools from Quebec and stuff like that. And so, I mean, he's going to murder those kids. But then, they get into some real stuff. They play St. Ed's. They actually lost the state championship game, which is kind of a shocker to Toledo Central Catholic Cathedral Prep, which, again, I don't know where they're from. I'd imagine they're from somewhere in maybe Pennsylvania. I'm not sure. But he's a big kid, man. And like I said, he runs his feet. He finishes. He's super lean. It's weird. Physically, he looks like LaCharles Bentley. Not like he's not bald and thick neck, but like when you look at his build and his stature, he kind of looks like LaCharles. And again, he's a super technical kid in terms of what he does. Which again, if you're anywhere near LaCharles Bentley, then you're like one of the best players in school history. So, but I love his technical skills here. They're playing St. Ignatius. So again, that's the great thing about when you watch Hoban play is that they're playing they play Murderers Row. They play St. Ed's, St. Ignatius, and they're a Division II school. So they're playing the D1 powers. This is a good jump set again from the Goodyear blimp cam that they have. Great job on the highlights. They got to put the scoreboard between every single clip, so that's good. But I like I said, I love this kid. He never stops, and people, they hate him because once he gets onto these guys, he just he doesn't let up, and you'll see these guys get angry and say that he's being too mean to me. Look at them, they flap their arms up in the air and they try to look for some sort of call. I don't know what call you'd get. Excessive blocking, like it's the Michael Orr movie, I guess. But yeah, I love him. So Dave, the issues between and I don't know if it's overblown because again, this was Urban, this wasn't even Ryan Day, but they pulled Danny Clark's offer. Danny Clark was at Massillon. He committed to Ohio State when he's in like 9th grade, transferred to Hoban. kind of in his junior year, Ohio State literally just stopped calling the kid. So they, Danny didn't develop at the rate that they liked, and that's part of the problem. Is when you take these quarterbacks as freshmen or sophomores, then there's a chance they stop developing. So they pulled the offer essentially, or they didn't pull the offer; they just stopped calling them. So again, it's kind of a cruel part of big time football, and it's part of the reason sometimes you don't want to see why the sausage is made, because I mean there's some stuff that goes on that you're not proud of when you're associated with it, but that's what the big boys do. And with Urban, we started acting like the big boys. There's a lot of the gentleman agreement stuff all went out the window, and it's still kind of like that. Nevada, you got any comments on the Danny Clark thing and taking those guys so early, those quarterbacks, and some of these guys, and how it can come back to haunt you if the guys don't develop?
Yeah, that's dangerous. It's one of those things where you see, USC offering eighth graders or seventh graders or whatever it is, and you want Ohio State to kind of get in that business, and you felt like with his recruiting, really was hot and heavy, even in his ninth grade year. And like you said, then when he started to kind of plateau out, and Ohio State wasn't sure if he kind of fit what they wanted to do, it's hard to pull those offers from this in-state kid. So yeah, it's a delicate dance. That's just kind of a bad situation all the way around. I knew his dad, God rest his soul, pretty well, and I know that was just kind of an unfortunate situation for everybody. But I just think you got to be really careful with in-state offers, because you've got to honor them. And that was just a tough situation, and hopefully Ohio State, I think, has been a lot more judicious, learned a little bit from that experience, and so that's when you see an offer go out to an underclassman at Ohio State, that kid's special, and that they consider him to be can't miss, because they probably are.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, with these coaches, not every state has the quality of coaches that the state of Ohio does. So, Ohio coaches are good coaches. They do great work. Really forthright crew. And again, your reputation when you're an Ohio State head coach or assistant coach, these guys all talk. So when you yank an offer, man, it's a bad deal. I remember Tommy Tuberville was at Cincinnati. He pulled, I think it was, or it wasn't Austin Applewhite. He went to Hoover. It was a kid from Massillon who I think he ended up going to Iowa State, but it was a kid from Massillon that had been committed to Cincinnati for however long. Tuberville shows up, and the first thing he does is he basically says, "Hey, I'm not honoring any of the verbal commitments. I'm going to go get my own kids," and release everybody from their. I mean, there was nothing signed, but they all had verbal to Cincinnati, and he says, "Hey, I'm not going to take anyone." And when it's a quarterback, it's really hard because these quarterbacks end up, most teams take one quarterback, so it's kind of like musical chairs. Like when the music stops, like if you don't have a chair, then you're kind of screwed. And he might have had an offer from Pitt or Michigan State or Penn State, and he takes Cincinnati, and then those schools all move on and get quarterbacks, and then when Cincinnati yanks his offer, then all of a sudden he's kind of looking around like, I don't really have anywhere to go. Again, another bad situation that was really bad, because I remember Massillon's head coach was he was like, "Don't ever come to our high school again. Don't ever." As long as you're there, we'll never deal with the Cincinnati Bearcats. I mean, it was really bad. So it's tough because, again, like, you gotta be delicate, man. It's like diffusing a bomb when you deal with these Ohio kids and coaches, because they're not handlers, they're not agents, they're not like coaches in the state of Florida or some of these places where it's just kind of like you just kind of roll your eyes at how the coaches act. Here, like, they're real dudes. So. And Urban knew that. I mean, that was like something that he recognized early on when he got here in 2012, is that you ain't dealing with the Florida coaches anymore that are just a bunch of yahoos. Like, you're dealing with some real dudes up here. And these guys, they talk, they're ethical, they're smart, and they can see you from a mile away if you're a fraud. So, but I really like this kid. These guys, they run some unbalanced, so he gets some snaps kind of as the left tackle when they do the 2 tackle over, which they're doing here against Massillon. So again, I think he's really good. Again, these angles are hilarious. I mean, this is like literally on top of the stadium, the blimp cam. So, but again, I think this is a kid I'd offer. I'd take him tomorrow. I'd take him, the Armstrong twins. The big kid we watched before is obviously not going to come for another year because he's got 2 more years of high school left. But you got to reload that room and get some big quality guys like this. And if Bama's offering a kid and it's committable, then obviously they've done a lot of diligence on the kid. And, if Bama offers a kid in Ohio, then I'm offering the same kid. I wouldn't even think twice about it because, he's a guy that I think would be a really good interior guy, really good guard, maybe even a really good center. So again, that's our boy Satterwhite. So we're gonna take some questions now. Appreciate you guys hanging in there as always. What do we got? It's funny. No, I know excessive blocking. They called that on Michael Orr in the one movie. I don't know if that was made up or not. But no, this is a good one. So James had 5 INTs, and I lived this. This was great. In 06, more than every DB combined on the current roster. And that is one of the billion-dollar questions with Ohio State going into 2023 is, can we turn the ball over more? I mean, the fact that our cornerbacks, that we've called, the DBU and all these nicknames, BIA, Best in America. I mean, it was like NUN, like none, no interceptions for any of our corners last year. So again, I've never seen that. I've never heard of that. Nevada, can we get more turnovers out of our secondary in year 2 of Jim Knowles' defense?
Well, we better, but I mean, I think it's all related though. I mean, I think we weren't getting the kind of pass rush that we wanted, and when you don't get the kind of pass rush, you don't get those hurried passes, you don't get the turnovers, you don't get those kind of big plays, and so I think it's all I think it's all interrelated, but we have nowhere to go but up because the cornerbacks had as many interceptions as Kirk Barton and Nevadabuck did last year, and that's no bueno.
It's scary. So if you guys would offer William Satterwhite, I want you guys to type offer in the chat. We're going to do a little poll. We're going to start putting some polls up on here so that you guys can kind of be little baby Mark Pantoni's little recruiting coordinators over here. And we can see, should Ohio State wait? Should they pull the trigger tonight? What are your thoughts? You just watched the film. Granted, it's just a little quick highlight reel. It's not full game tape. But again, we've got limited time, and I'm sure you guys want to watch an entire game of Hoban film. But you guys, I mean, I like the movement skills. Think he's tough. Again, when guys finish blocks consistently, it's just something that, when you don't have to tell a guy to finish a guy, it makes your life so much easier as an offensive line coach, because there's some guys that are just kind of gentleman blockers where they don't want to finish guys and they kind of want to rest and they don't want to like pound guys in the ground. And this kid loves doing it. He does it all the time. He does it on every play. He does it on pass plays. So I love that attribute. I think that that's something that when guys do that, if you can get 5 of those guys together to start on the O-line, you're probably going to be able to move some bodies and run the football. So I love the kid. I'd take him tonight, take his commitment tonight. Again, Ohio linemen have been fantastic. So appreciate it. Yeah. See, and again, I love the comments you guys see. He's got great feet. You guys can see it. I mean, again, you don't have to be some sort of, you don't have to be some sort of wizard to see if a guy can move his feet and he can bend and he can finish blocks. You guys can see it. And that's why I like doing these shows live with you, because you guys can give the same feedback that I get, and I've coached it, developed guys, and a lot of you guys have coached too at different levels. There's guys that are high school coaches that come on this show, middle school coaches, but you guys know, I mean, come on, when you see a guy that can really bend and move and run and finish his guys, like, it's so easy to tell, especially when it's a guy at Hoban who's playing St. Ed's, St. Ignatius, Toledo Central Catholic. I mean, they're literally playing Murderers Row. It's like they're playing every good team in Ohio is on their schedule. So those are always fun to watch because I love it. Oh, this is a great one. Kirk seems smart enough to be an OSU coach. Why did he leave coaching? Well, I think the biggest thing is I'm smart enough to not be an OSU coach because I have enough people that don't like me. The only way that I could be more disliked is if I was an Ohio State offensive coordinator or an offensive or defensive coordinator, because those guys, you guys hate on those guys. And that's always the funny thing that Nevada and I always joke about is like, it's only a matter of time. No matter how good you are, the people are going to, there's going to be a time where they're going to be angry with you. And it doesn't matter if you're Jim Tressel, Urban, Woody Hayes, Hartline, Tom Herman, Luke Fickell, Jim Knowles. It's just kind of how it is. It's a rite of passage. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes this year with some of these guys. But give you a quick question. Nevada, what are your thoughts on that? I'm smart enough to be an OSU coach.
Yeah, no, I just think what people don't realize, I mean, like you see the coaching gigs and you see these guys, how much money they make, and everything about it just looks attractive. And there's no question, for a guy like you who played, who's been a coach, been a player, got all, you could do it in a heartbeat. But the big sacrifice, as you're well aware, is your family. It's like the coaching, especially under any just about anybody, but certainly a taskmaster like Urban Meyer is just it's a grind, and it's a grind that your family takes the brunt of it, and you miss an awful lot of them growing up. And you're constantly worried about, even when you're getting promoted, you're on the move, so you're not staying in one place. You're 3 years here, 5 years here, going on to another place. And money's great, but time with your kids, time with your family is better, exponentially better. And I don't envy the life of the coaches at all, because there's a lot that they give up in return for that money.
I couldn't agree more. So I did it for 3 years. I got my master's in business administration. So I got my MBA. I'm the only graduate assistant in the history of Ohio State football, because when you're a GA, you have to go to grad school. They make you go to grad school. And it's like most of the guys do a sports management major. And I was like, if I'm going to have to go to class for 4 hours a day or whatever, like I'm going to get an MBA, because it's like, I'm going to spend 4 hours doing some BS sports management thing. I'd much rather get an MBA. Like much rather get, because I mean, an MBA, that's a big time degree from Fisher, the Fisher College of Business. So I would work from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. at the Woody Hayes, working for Urban Meyer like a Roman slave. And then I'd go to class from 6 to 10 at night at Fisher. And so I'd be, there were days where in practice, when they were stretching, I'd be studying for a finance exam. I'd be taking it at 6 and I'd run off the field exhausted, drink 2 Red Bulls, go take a finance exam. And and sometimes, like, I would just try to do the best I could, because, if you're getting ready to play Penn State or Michigan or whatever, like, you just don't really care about your finance exam, because you're worried about getting the pass protections right on third down. When me and Ed Warner were running the offensive line in 2012, like, that's all you care about. Your whole life depends on beating Penn State. It doesn't depend on how you do in the finance exam, because none of you guys see how I do in the finance exam. I got my degree. It's all that matters. They don't put my GPA on it, thank God. But I loved it. But the biggest thing is, like, for me, I love what I do now. I run Buckeye Scoop. I work with Nevadabuck. I work with Bill Greene. Have an absolute blast. Evaluate Ohio State football every day. And I still get to take my kid to hockey on Fridays. I get to take my kid out to lunch and pick him up from school and do all that. And and I kind of make my own schedule. I really love what I do, and I get to break down O-line film with you guys, and it's a blast. And I still get that same rush of covering Ohio State football and getting inside scoops and information and getting it to you guys and breaking things down and breaking down film. Like I've watched the Georgia game, all 22 film multiple times, and it's a blast, because it's not like you always kind of uncover some new stuff every time you rewatch it with fresh eyes. And it's just fun to see, who did well, who could step up. Some of the schematic things that Georgia did against us are really good. So I love seeing that and talking about that on BuckeyeScoop.com. So I loved coaching, but I don't miss coaching at all. So, that was like the funny thing is, when I got out of it, I was like, thank God I can just enjoy a regular life with my MBA. That being said, PJ Studio, Super Chat, thank you so much. You guys, these Super Chats really are huge for us. So thank you so much for doing those. The Tim Walton thing is really, really interesting. 6 scholarship corners in the room. I know that Jalen Ramsey loved him. Again, it's just one of those things where I think the biggest question I have is, when you have Perry Eliano, who coached Sauce Gardner, who literally just had the best rookie year in NFL history for a corner, and was like the 4th pick in the draft, I believe. And then the other corner was Kobe Bryant, C-O-B-Y, not K-O-B-E, like the basketball player, but Kobe Bryant, who went to Glenville. And he won the Thorpe Award, which, again, this is why I think media people are complete morons, because how could he win the Thorpe over Sauce Gardner, who was the guy that was the top 5 pick? I'll never know. But so you have the Thorpe winner on one side of your corner room at Cincinnati, mind you. Then you have Sauce on the other side, who is first team All-Pro, starting the Pro Bowl, every accolade you can imagine as a rookie. He'll be the defensive rookie of the year. And he coaches the safeties. So that's kind of weird, because, when these corners are kind of struggling, they're not doing great technically, their confidence is shot. You'd think that, Perry Eliano would be the guy coaching them, but again, Tim Walton's coached in the league for a long time. He's been a really good corners coach, but sometimes, the wires cross. There's been some good coaches that didn't get it done at Ohio State to the degree that I would expect them to get it done, and it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward with Tim Walton, if he makes it to the season, if he moves on. I've heard both. I have no idea. But I think Perry Eliano is a guy that, if you put a gun to my head and said, how would I reorganize the coaching staff? Well, I'd have Perry coach the corners because the corners are terrible. I'd have Jim Knowles and Tim Walton coach the safeties because, Jim Knowles, it's his safety-driven defense, which is his big term. So have him coach the safeties since that's his big thing. And then he can assist with James and teach James how to coach the linebackers the way he wants. But the linebackers, the way with Jim Knowles' defense, there's only 2 linebackers on the field. So that's actually pretty easy to do, especially when you have them, when your 2 linebackers are Tommy and Steele, who are 2 of the smartest guys. I mean, Tommy's the smartest guy on the entire team. So those guys they're not on autopilot, but they're pretty close. So, and you got to get them safeties right. So we've got a bunch of new faces back there. But Nevada, what are your thoughts on Tim Walton? I think that some of the hate, as always, is overblown. But what are your thoughts on it? I'd love to hear what you think of Tim Walton. And do you think he makes it to the season?
I think what Ohio State fans are seeing right now is the narrative. The narrative gets put out on a guy, and whether it's fair or whether it's unfair or whether it's right or whether it's not right, whatever it is, it's the way it goes, and it comes out. And if there's a head that's going to roll and there's somebody's going to pay for the defense, it's going to be Tim Walton, and it's already been preordained. It's just the way it is, and I'm not sure if that's what's going to happen. But if it does happen, you're watching it. It's like a train wreck, a slow motion train wreck, where you see the stuff start coming out. They put it out there. They put it out there, their media sources. They put it out there via social media. It kind of gets out there, kind of permeates out there, and it's like, problem is Tim Walton's the problem. Oh, it's Tim Walton. It's a Tim Walton issue. Forget the 6, scholarship cornerbacks. Forget the Jalen Ramsey accolades. Forget the past, performance. Everything else goes out the window. Somebody's got to pay, and so I think that's as honest as I can give it to you listeners out there. That's what it is. That's what's happening right now. So will it happen? Not sure. Could it happen? Absolutely. Are we watching it happen in slow motion? Yes, we are. So that's your answer.
Yeah, it's like going to the theaters in 1997 to watch Titanic, and you hope the boat doesn't sink for some reason, but it's going to sink. But again, anything can happen. It's coaching. I've seen crazy stuff happen on coaching staffs. I've seen stuff change, stuff get done, stuff not get done. I've seen head coaches not return phone calls of All-Americans. I've seen all kinds of crazy stuff, and now. Thankfully they rectified that and they brought him in as a GA. Thank God. But no, I think that the Walton thing is going to be fascinating. All right. So Mike Campbell, it is going to be 2004 or 2008 for Ohio State. A lot of fans don't remember these days, but you will very soon. So I don't know what that means. I think it might mean 04, as in we weren't very good. We went 8-4 that year. I don't agree with that at all, just because I think that our skill guys are so good. With Marvin, Emeka, Trey. I think our line will be fine. I think our schedule is really initially it's soft, and then it hardens up with Notre Dame, Penn State, Wisconsin. 08. I think we lost. What did we lose 2 games that year? We lost to Penn State. That was the year we got housed by USC. That was my rookie year in the NFL, so I didn't really follow that year as well. Housed by USC, then we lost to Penn State at home. Then we lost to Texas. So that was a 3-loss year. That's Heartland's last year, actually. Let me see. What else do you guys got? Keep bringing these questions, man. These are fantastic.
Is that Mike? Does Mike Campbell have like a Penn State jersey on in that little picture there, or what is it? What type of jersey?
I don't know. Let me blow that up. I can't tell, man. That's interesting.
Oh, I don't know.
It's like a
I
faded,
never,
a faded Reggie Bush jersey.
yeah, maybe.
Faded. He said, "Not my family. I hate Michigan." Sauce Gardner. Yeah, I don't know. It says people are saying he's a troll, but I didn't think it was that bad of a question.
Yeah.
You know. Um. Yeah, I'm just. It's funny. I know. I did. Yeah, I know Notre Dame lost to Marshall early in the year, but they beat Clemson. Coming down the stretch. So that's a real win. Again, Marcus Freeman is one of the youngest coaches in college football, and he's coaching at Notre Dame. Again, they weren't the most talented outfit in the world. They were decent, but I think Marcus getting that Clemson one gave him a lot of momentum, but I'm so glad that we got James back. He is he's a fantastic, fantastic dude. Let me see what else. What other
Can I
questions have we got?
can I sell my Marcus Freeman stock on is there like
Yes,
a stock
a f-
exchange?
like
Yeah, yes.
a fan text where you can buy and sell stock in coaches.
Yeah, I'm just not seeing it. I didn't see it when they hired him. I don't see it now. I think he's a dead man walking. I think it's just a matter of time. I think the Clemson game bought him some a little bit of runway, but I mean nice guy, but completely underqualified to be being the head coach at Notre Dame.
Oh, I totally agree with that. I was shocked when he became the new head coach at Notre Dame because that's top 10 job easily. And Marcus, for whatever, I mean, he's ascended, but I mean, his defense has always kind of stunk. So, again, I think that we'll get him in Notre Dame this year. I mean, it's going to be a big one in South Bend, but I think Ryan Day can carve him up defensively. It took us a minute to get warmed up last year, but I think we'll be better this year. I really do. I think, I think the problem with a lot of people is they're just like, well, how could we possibly be better in 23? And I'm like, well, Marvin Harrison is going to be better than he was last year. I promise you. And that guy is going to be better than he was last year. Trey Henderson, who was beat to death last year, is going to be much better this year. He'll go back to his old form where he ran, it's funny. I looked up the Tulsa stats earlier. He ran for 270 yards against Tulsa. And it's like last year, I felt like he didn't even have 500 yards because he barely played. So I think we're going to be doing good. Kicking field goals, Nevada. I have no idea. I don't know if it's gonna be Parker Lewis, the kid from SC. It's gonna be fascinating to watch and see who we go after. 2023 sack leader. I'm gonna go with Mike Hall because I think that they'll finally have to play more than 15 snaps a game. He'll have 10 sacks. He'll lead the team. Nevada, who is your sack leader for the 2023 Bucks?
JT Tumalo. I think he's going to have a big year. I think he's going to have a really big year. It's we've talked about it. We saw flashes from him. I mean, the Penn State game might have been the greatest defensive performance that I've ever seen. Period. End. Any player. Full stop. And I think we're going to see more of that. He's flashed the ability. I think he's poised to have one of those gigantic years. I mean, he's going to have a big year. It's not going to really come out of the blue. It's not going to be like, oh my gosh, where did this kid come from? You got to remember, he's the bluest of blue chips, the number one player in the country. He's shown flashes. He's had the big years. He's been the national defensive player of the week. He's going to put it together next year, and I think he's going to lead a much enhanced Ohio State pass rush and double-digit sacks for sure. I think he's our leader.
All right, I'm going to set the over-under on Marvin Harrison Jr.'s receiving yards at 1,500. Are you going to go over or under? If you guys are participating in the chat, type over or under. If you want, put in a prediction. I think he goes over. I think he's going to have 1,600. I think McCord wins the job. That was his high school quarterback. Got to feed the beast. I think games are going to be tighter. I think there's going to be a lot less Marvin sitting and watching in the fourth quarter. So I think he's going to be a guy who's going to be 100 catches and 1,600 yards, 1,650 maybe. Because I think that we're going to need him to be an absolute horse out there if we're going to have a chance to do what we need to do to win. What are your thoughts, Nevada?
Well, I mean, with Jordan Addison going and Caleb Williams throwing, he's going to, easily over 1,500 yards for. Oh my goodness! Did I just break that Marvin's going to USC on this podcast right now? I'm
What a
sorry.
Colin, your boy Colin get out the checkbook for him?
I'm sorry, guys. I wasn't
Sorry,
supposed to that we weren't supposed to
sorry,
talk about
Colin.
that. We weren't supposed to talk about that. I'm sorry.
Col- Colin, come on, Colin.
Yes.
Stop breaking the news. I agree. So thank you, Super Chat. Appreciate you, AJ. I think all the young guys will have a chip on their shoulder. The team will be better than last year. Nevada and I are on the same boat, and I know people think we're sunshine pumpers, but you just look at the analytics. Like and I'm saying this, and I'm not saying this because we're just trying to pump sunshine, but like this has to be the deepest group of skill players we've ever had. I mean, we have our top 3 receivers back. We have every running back is literally back, including Trey Henderson, who was injured and barely played last year and was freshman All-American, preseason All-American. Tight end room, you have Cade Stover back along with Joe Royer, and I think Joe Royer is really going to be the guy that steps up and does well. Quarterbacks, I think, it's nice that we've got guys that are going into their third year, so they're not freshmen or sophomores. These guys have been in the system. They know the system. Obviously, Kyle McCord was high school teammates with Marvin Harrison, who's a 5-star coming out of high school. He was much more highly regarded than Marvin was coming out of high school. And so it'll be interesting to see if any of that chemistry still exists from high school. And defensively, I think that we're going to have more talent up front. For whatever reason, our rotations have been terrible on the defensive line. And now you can't hide, Mike Hall and Tyleek and JT and Jack. And, it's kind of put up or shut up, time for all those guys. It's time for those guys to step up and have those monster years so that they can potentially leave after 3 years. Because I know JT probably wants to leave. Mike Hall wants to leave. Jack, these guys all want to have an option to leave. So, they got to go put up some numbers. They can't, you can't leave if you get 3.5 sacks. That's not how it works. So it's time for those guys to step up and set the tone up front. Nevada, have you changed your mind in the last weeks? I feel like we talk about this every week. The 2023 Buckeyes, will they be better than the 2022 Buckeyes?
No, I mean better. I mean, again, guys, 99% of our receiving yards are returning. 97% of our rushing yards are returning. That's unprecedented at Ohio State. And I think when you have that situation, whoever the quarterback is stepping into the rocking chair. You're going to get a guy that's not just fresh off the boat. They've been here at least 1 year, and Cal McCord's been multiple years. So we're going to get a relatively experienced quarterback with just so many weapons to go to, experienced weapons, proven weapons, and Ohio State's going to be better, and I think they're going to be much better. I think this year, we played a few games that were a little closer than we might have liked. I think next year we're going to be just dominating teams on both sides of the ball.
Nick, I'm not sure if you mean can we have 2 1,000-yard receivers and 2 1,000-yard rushes next year, as in Marvin and Mecca, and then like Trey and Mayan each hit 1,000. I mean, that would be unbelievable if we could pull that off. I think that obviously Emeka and Marvin will both go over 1,000. I think that Trey will go over 1,000 if his foot hangs in there. And then Mayan, I mean, the hardest part, like with Mayan and Trey, is you still have Dallin Hayden, you have Evan Pryor, you have Chip. I don't know if he's going to go back to linebacker, but you got a lot of mouths to feed in that running back room. And they're all good players. Like, when these guys are all guys, they're not just like potential and we've heard they've done good in practice type guys. These are guys that, like, Chip started the Michigan game. Evan Pryor was fantastic in the spring game. Dallin Hayden saved us in the Maryland game. Like, these guys played real minutes in real games and really did well. So this isn't just like hyperbole and, hey, we heard that this guy was good in winter practice during the bowl practice. Like, these guys actually played in real games, like in nut cutting time, not just in blowout time. So that's the only reason I would be hesitant to say that we're going to have 2,000-yard rushers, is because I think if you have, just to make it a round number for percentages, if you have 100 carries, so 100% of your carries, I'd imagine that Trey would probably take 35 to 40% of those. Mine would probably take 20 or 25% of those. And then you divvy the rest up to Dallin and Evan. And if Chip stays there, if he moves back to linebacker, who knows? It wouldn't shock me at all if somebody hits the portal, just because, when you have 6 running backs that could all start basically 95% of the schools in Division I, you have to think someone wants to go be the man somewhere. So again, I'm just being a realist. I'm not trying to start any speculation or rumors, but that's just modern college football. If you're, an Evan Pryor or a Chip, and a school's like, hey, you're going to be our feature back, or you could be the number 6 guy at Ohio State and play when we're up by 77 points against Rutgers, like, you got to consider it, because these guys all want to go to the league and get paid. So that's this reality of modern football with what the portal is. Like, you're not going to hold on to when you have all these really good players, some of them are going to go elsewhere, a la Joe Burrow, and start because they want to go to the league. They want to get paid. I mean, the days of being Bobby Buckeye and hanging out for 5 years and graduating and hanging out in Columbus and, eating at Roosters and making a menial, deal, like, those days are over. These guys are going to transfer out and go get paid. Because, I mean, Joe Burrow, the greatest thing he ever did in his life was go to LSU. Changed his entire life. So, Nevada, your thoughts? Could we have 2 1,000-yard receivers and 2 1,000-yard running backs next year?
Like you said, I think I think we will. I think it's the only thing that would that would short circuit something like that would be injury. So assuming those guys all play a reasonable amount of time and aren't hobbled by injury throughout the season, I would expect that we'd have 2,000-yard receivers and 2,000-yard rushers. It's going to be that kind of an offense. We're going to have that kind of diversity, and I expect that to happen.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's gonna be interesting. And again, like, I think that the line will be fine. I think that we've got some really good really good skill. I mean our skill's the best I've ever seen. Like, in terms of the guys not only coming back, but you throw in Brandon Ennis, Carnell Tate. I mean, on top of Mecca. The thing that'll be interesting is, now that Brian Hartline's the offensive coordinator, is does he deepen the rotation a little bit? Because I felt like 95% of the reps last year, the 3 receivers were the same 3 receivers. Well, I guess you could throw X in there, but it was Julian, Marvin, Emeka as the top 3, and then X sprinkled in there. And I think X is fantastic. I think X is a guy that, in the spring, he could probably get some work at running back, because, in the spring, I imagine Mayan's coming off surgery. Trey's coming off surgery. I can't imagine they're going to be putting the screws to him, so it'll be really interesting to see how much they play. But it's going to be really fascinating to see how they manage some of these guys that didn't finish the season healthy and had to get off-season surgeries. So, well, I appreciate you guys. We're going to wrap this thing up. This was a quick hour, a fun hour. We did some great O-line breakdowns. We had some fantastic questions. Thank you guys so much. Nevada, any final thoughts as we wrap up our Friday Night Live?
Now, just huge news about James Laurinaitis coming back. I cannot emphasize how big this is. This is not just your typical non-primary 10 hire. This is a big one. This will pay big dividends down the road. And like I said, I can't be more excited about this. I'm all in on his abilities as a future impactful coach at Ohio State. And this is a great day to be a Buckeye.
Really is. It's a huge day. I'm super excited that James is coming home. I think he's going to do a fantastic job. So I'm going to wrap this thing up. Appreciate you guys. Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Dave. Thank all you guys that are showing up every night. We appreciate this. We have such a blast doing this. We love breaking down this film with you guys. We love talking ball with you guys. We do it every night. It's easily the fastest hour of my day. We do it for an hour generally, and it just scorches by. I look at the clock and I'm like, oh God, I gotta get I gotta go get this uploaded and edit it up for you guys to put up tomorrow. So we appreciate you guys so much. If you guys enjoy our content, please leave us a like. Those are so helpful for us. You guys have no idea how much that helps us catch the algorithm. The likes are huge. Subscribe, spread the word, send it to your friends, let them know, hey, we're cranking Buckeye content pretty much every day. There's no off season on BuckeyeScoop.com. If you really enjoy this and you really want to be on the inside of what goes on inside the Woody Hayes, BuckeyeScoop.com is the place for you. We have a fantastic community. Some of the smartest, best, highest level Ohio State, supporters, fans, trustees, donors, former players. They're all members. So it's a great community. It's a fantastic community. It's really high level. So proud of what we've done there. So proud of the people that are members there. So we appreciate you guys. We'd love to have you guys. We talk football every day on BuckeyeScoop.com. So it's like, if you enjoy this 1 hour, imagine what it would be like if you could do it for 24 hours. So, because the Scoop never sleeps. I swear to God, it doesn't. And anytime I think it's about to be a slow day, we offer a true sophomore tackle. We go get James Laurinaitis. So there's always stuff popping off on BuckeyeScoop.com. So we appreciate you guys. We broke the James stuff on Wednesday. Everybody else caught up today. So the Scoop had it first, per usual. So appreciate you guys. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Actually, we'll be back tomorrow. We're going to talk football again because that's what we love to do. So we appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks for the great questions. Comment down below. Would you offer these Ohio O linemen that we reviewed tonight? So you be Justin Fry. You tell me if you'd offer them or not. If you'd wait till they camp, I'd love your feedback on that. I appreciate that. And also shout out where you guys are from. I love when you guys do that. We've gotten the Philippines, we've gotten Kyoto, Japan, we've gotten Africa, we've gotten people from all over literally the world in the comments, and it is fantastic to see where you guys are watching from. Appreciate you guys as always, all the great Ohio folk, the Florida folk. Shout out where you're from. So thank you guys. If you guys are on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review. Those are huge for us. If you do not follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, click subscribe on those because those help us as well. Again, thank you guys so much. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for the great questions, and thanks for being such a great audience. As always, can't do without you guys. So thank you, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. You guys have a great rest of your day. Go Bucks. Welcome home, James Laurinaitis.